Should you branch out or niche down in your photography? On today's episode of Develop and Process. Over on Instagram on the DMs, I got a question from Jet Holiday, and he asked, I was wondering, do you think it's better to become very good at one particular style, or is it equally important to try new things? For example, I've been really interested in black and white film and would love to become really good at darkroom printing. Can't say that I am yet. But as of lately, I've become intrigued by cross-processing color films. Would it be beneficial to experiment with both or to find one style that is fitting? So thanks, Jet, for that question. And I've already answered you in the DMs, but we talked about it and decided it would be a good topic for an episode. So my answer essentially is the ideal thing is to branch out in order to niche down. And what I mean by that is that in my personal experience, both in my own photographic career and also in watching those of other photographers, generally it's best to find one niche area of photography and specialize in it. The reason is that if you try to make progress in 100 different directions, you're going to make a tiny amount of progress in all 100 directions, if that, and you're not really going to get anywhere. You're not going to become truly excellent at any one of those things. But if you focus on one direction at a time, and you really pour all of your energy and passion into that one focused direction, then you can really become excellent at that one thing. And oftentimes the one aspect that's missing between mediocrity and greatness is simply focus. So for that reason, I do believe it's best to specialize in one style or one niche of photography. Now, where the branching out part comes in is that if you select an area of photography or any area of life to become excellent in, and then you're not sure that that's the correct area because you haven't actually experimented and tried out all of these different things. If you haven't, kind of like in the last episode, stayed curious and studied all these different diverse areas, then you may run the risk of accidentally selecting the wrong niche or the wrong style of photography for you. And I think I've seen this play out with some photographers I follow online and stuff who went really all in and became super excellent at one particular style of photography. And they built up big Instagram accounts with all these followers and a whole, successful career around it. And then all of a sudden one day, their style just abruptly changes completely, or they just walk away from the craft entirely and sell their camera. And what that means is they became burned out on what they were doing. And I'm not saying that burnout doesn't happen to everyone, it certainly does, but I think the probability of becoming burned out becomes much higher when you run that risk of focusing on the wrong thing. I think it's important to know what your options are, to try all these different styles of photography and determine what style of photography is the best fit for your passions, for your beliefs, for your personality. Then once you've done that, you can then focus on that area of photography with the confidence of knowing that you've looked elsewhere and you've decided that this is what you want to choose to focus your energy on. Now, for me personally, what that's looked like is, several years ago, I was a wedding and engagement and portrait photographer. And I flew all over the country shooting weddings and engagements and doing portrait sessions and stuff like that. I also covered events from time to time and did some major conferences and stuff like that. I also spent some time in food photography and studio photography, just kind of branching out and trying those areas. And there's even been times when I've done street photography in Chicago, for example. And what I found was that while I did certainly enjoy all of those areas of photography in certain ways, I was not passionate about any one of them. And I would say that the wedding and engagement and portrait photography, I was just never really cut out for it. It wasn't my thing. I did it because that's where the money was, that's where the clients were, and it was just easy to build a business out of. Unfortunately, I got burned out, and really badly. And that did not work out for me. So I ended up, getting out of that business. I also have done street photography, and, I definitely enjoyed street photography a lot more because to me, it felt more organic, less forced. The authenticity was there that I was looking for. But at the same time, if I'm really honest, like, I'm not a people person. I'm an introvert. I love the wilderness. I do not enjoy the city, at least not for long periods of time. I don't mind visiting, but I certainly prefer to spend time in the wilderness over the city. And so obviously I wasn't really cut out for that either. And so the food photography and commercial, again, it was fun. It was authentic and everything to a point, as much as creativity as you're allowed with the clients. But at the same time, it was just for the money and it wasn't all that interesting to me. And so again, I was kind of burned out on that and just wasn't passionate about it at all. And so, I decided to stop doing that as well. So several years went by and then I got back into photography. So I actually had dropped out for 2 years and just did no photography at all and did something else. And what I ended up focusing on was landscape photography. And the funny part is that 2-year sabbatical, if you want to call it that, from photography gave me the clarity to really know what I was passionate about because it was what I missed. So I didn't miss the wedding photography or the food photography or commercial photography, but I was really aching to get out into the natural world, into the landscape, and do some photography to create some images. And I knew that was why I was buying a camera. That was why I was pursuing photography. And so that was about in 2012 that happened. And ever since, I've been laser focused on landscape photography, and I have not looked back. I haven't regretted it one bit for 1 second. It's just been what I'm absolutely focused on and passionate about with my photography. And so I just want to say, go out there, experiment, try new things, and find out the type of photography that you are passionate about, and then pursue that, double down on it, and really focus, and then you can become excellent in your craft. Now, one other area I want to mention is that, like in Jet's comment, let's say you've already decided you like street photography or landscape photography or wedding photography, but there's a lot of room for interpretation in personal style. Now, I got to make a separate video about personal style, but I do want to say that if you're trying to find your personal style within your niche that you've selected, there's definitely, again, it's time to branch out and experiment. So, like, for example, if you're shooting landscapes, black and white landscapes and color landscapes are two very different things. And they require different forms of visualization, often different tool sets and skill sets, different subject matter, different approaches. And so I think it is important, to try black and white photography and to try color photography and learn, the differences between the two in terms of mindset and visualization and technique and so on. And then decide which one fits better with your personality and your way of seeing. Or maybe like me, you'll end up where you use black and white to interpret certain scenes and moods, and then color to interpret others. So that way, at least you'll understand the tools and methods you have at your disposal, and you'll be better able to bring your ideas into fruition with your photography. The same would apply to, experimental stuff like, night photography, long exposures, cross-processing, experimental development techniques, experimental post-processing techniques with digital. I think it's very, very important to learn your craft by experimentation and trying all these different types and styles of photography. But what you're going to find more than likely is that after you do that experimentation, 1 or 2 or 3 of them sticks out the most. And more than likely, you'll find one style of photography that you just keep coming back to again and again, and that becomes your personal style. So again, branch out in order to niche down so that your niching down is informed by your experience. So thanks, Jet, for that insightful question. I hope you guys find this helpful and helps you think about your photography in a new light. I'm Justin Lowry, and this has been Develop and Process. Until next time, stay curious.